You know what warms me up on an ice-cold Cleveland Tuesday? A nice, brisk walk. Off win, that is. Guardians, a walk-off winner for their home opener, quite literally. We'll get into that, some home opener observations. The Guardians need to build an identity, an injury scare that made us think. The Guardians swung a minor trade. We'll talk about that, and we'll do Stock Watch Wednesday on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Guardians. It's where we cover the Cleveland Guardians for the next 30 minutes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're bringing you Guardians news, analysis, observations, fun conversations, 5 days a week. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians part of your daily routine. We are going to talk about the Guardians home opener win. We'll get into more of that. We'll get into looking for an identity this season for the Guardians if we think we're finding one. An injury scare we got to talk about with Lane Thomas, the Guardians minor trade they swung before the game. We'll do Stock Watch Wednesday as well. I am Justin Ladd. I have been covering this Guardians minor league system since 2007. Currently News Herald, the Morning Journal. Next year in Cleveland.substack.com. And here with you 5 days a week. Jeff's back with us. Thanks, Jeff, for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Sorry, everyone. We had another death in the family. I'll just be very honest. I'll bring everyone down. And I'll follow that up with life is life. It is what it is. But I can't not be me and say, so Justin, would you say today's game was a walk in the park or not a walk in the park?
It was not a walk in the park to sit through as far as weather is concerned.
But
it was definitely a day for a walk. Before we get any further in today's episode, too, I want to let you know today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That was... Someone commented on it on one of our videos and said that was the least tension-filled home opener. And I gotta say, the vibes were a little weird. I think the weather really threw things off. I've been to the home opener every year. I was telling our insiders, we had a little insider chat on Monday, a video call. It was about, like I said, about 10 or 12 of us. It was a lot of fun. If you joined it, thank you. If you want to join, we'll talk about the insider program in the second segment. But I was saying, I had been to every home opener from 2005 to 2000, say for 2020 until 2024. We didn't go because of the eclipse. And every year, it's anticipation, excitement. And I kind of wonder, did the 9-game road trip, I know they didn't play great on the road trip but being on the road for 9 games, the freezing cold weather, I kind of wonder if that all played into it. It was a little bit of a weird vibe, I will say, but it was good to be back in the ballpark. I can mention some ballpark upgrade talk too, if we want to talk about that, but it was good to be back, and it's good to get a win in the home opener. I think that always makes everyone feel good is winning that home opener and kicking things off on the right foot, because the Guardians do need to start building some momentum in terms of finding a identity and building good days together to kind of erase some of the weird stuff and some of the bad habits they've already had to start the season. And I think there were some pieces from this game, ugly as it may be, that they can build on.
100%. You talk about the weirdness and all of that. I think, they were the last team to play a home game. It was not an advantageous schedule in that regard. They, listen, I still think the Angels are going to be pushovers before it's all said and done. And I don't think Chicago is going to be great, but Chicago, I think, is actually much improved from a year ago. And unfortunately, the story of the Guardian season for me in the early going is they seem to always get to face the best pitcher every team has. And I think Shane Smith's going to be a solid one. I think Sean Burke's going to be a solid one for the White Sox. I think the cold is probably the biggest single factor, though. It is. That is a day that is going to suppress offense. We know that offense suppression it leads to less involved fans. Big offense gets fans involved. A quiet game tends to not, even though they're the liveliest pitching well. I only got nervous twice in this game. It's when Cade walked the first 2 hitters, and then when Rocchio had the error, because it feels like, unlike a year ago where a lot of times when misplays happen and they could work through it, this year it feels like when a misplay happens, it's just a boulder going downhill and then everything falls apart. and it wasn't. Clase pitched very cleanly after that, and it was fine. So I think, to me, I think the weather was probably the single biggest issue in this one. Um, I agree with you though. I feel like we saw today what the team's identity kind of needs to be. And, one of the things that stood out is they got those first 2 hits, right? And you had Kyle Manzardo up with 2 men on, and what's he do? He strikes out. And then the next time there's a man on in front of him, he's patient and he gets the walk. And I think that patience, I think you probably will agree with me, is kind of the new identity, like working counts, getting more pitches, getting on base. We talked about in the Kansas City series, and they didn't do it so well against the Padres, which is walk. Like, they had 5 walks in this game. Nolan Jones had almost half of them. He had 40% would be the math there quickly, I think. I think that's kind of part of the identity, and it's why they targeted Santana. It's why they targeted Jones. It's why I think Schneemann was on top of being able to play everywhere, why he was the favorite. He does work counts and walk. I think that's part of this team's new identity.
It is. I do think that makes sense. And I think the reason it helps as an identity, look, I know there's a lot of people are going to say, oh, you only beat the worst team in baseball by 1 run on opening day. That's not exciting.
What a miserable life. If you're going to always be that negative, like, we have some people in our comments who I don't think I've ever said anything positive. Like, I just can't imagine what it's like to always be that negative.
It's crushing in today's world. I can tell you that. Look, I totally understand the fact that you want to see better offense, especially against a team like the White Sox. I mean, the White Sox lineup is not good. Like, Nick Maton was their DH. It's still a cold game. Like, I had no illusions. I said this with Chico on Tuesday's show. I mean, everybody who tuned in on that show and our everydayers will know that I said, look, coming home to this weather isn't going to get the offense going. Like, the offense was kind of sluggish in San Diego, and it was sluggish in Anaheim, even though Jose Ramirez had 3 home runs and Carlos Santana his first home run. Like, it's been a little bit sluggish outside of your big 3 or 4, depending on how you want to look at it. So I didn't think that this weather they were coming home to was going to necessarily get the offense cooking the way people want. But I think the important thing to remember, like, again, I know, people are not going to be happy with that sentiment. I'm willing to accept right now survive in advance mode. Okay. They're still trying to build the identity. We think it's going to be revolving around patience and grinding on at bats. So you have to find ways to not lose games. And what they were doing out west was they were making errors. They were not having good at bats. They weren't getting runners over. There's still small things this team needs to do. They do need to get runners over more. I know people are like, we hate the bunt, right? We don't want to see bunts. This team doesn't have hitters on the team that are going to bunt a lot. They just don't. They also don't have a lot of guys that are going to walk a ton either. Or I'm sorry, not walk, run. That's just something we should talk about, Jeff, too, is I don't think running is going to be a huge part of this team. We're talking about Lane Thomas in the second segment. I'll bring that up. We'll talk about that with the injury and him. But, like, so far, looking at the composition of the roster, the way it's built right now, I don't think running is going to be a big part of this team. So you have to grind out at bats, and you have to make pitchers work, and you have to get them to make mistakes so you can get a hit, so you can get on base, and you can pass the baton to the next guy and let something happen. This team last year thrived on chaos, guards ball, getting on base, getting the ball in play, and running well. This team doesn't have the same identity. You don't have the same guys doing that anymore. But you have to play good, clean defense. You do have to make the smart plays base running wise. I know everyone's saying, well, if they just spent more money and they mash like the Yankees or the Dodgers, we wouldn't care about this. But and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. There's things, I don't know where another right fielder not named Nolan Jones or John Kenzie Noel comes from. Michael Conforto, I don't know. The point is,
I think it's Chase DeLauder is what you're hoping, right?
Well, yeah, there is that. The point is, though, we're in season now. We can talk about shoulda, coulda, woulda, upgrades next offseason, whatever. You've got to focus on what's going to make this team the most successful this year. And there's going to be people who say, like, we're coming off an ALCS run. That shouldn't be the thing we're talking about. And I get that. But I've always said I look at things from 2 perspectives. I look at things from what the team is, and I look at things from what we'd like to see. And some of those things don't necessarily intersect. They don't cross each other as well. So you have to kind of also talk about reality of what you have. And the reality is this can be a patient team. The offense can be good when you have Kyle Manzardo having the at-bats he had in this game, when you have Nolan Jones having the at-bats that he did. Nolan Jones, to me, was the most impressive guy in this game, and he didn't get a hit. He had a walk. That was all he had, was a couple walks. He had 2 walks. He was the most impressive player in the game. We're going to talk more about Nolan Jones in the second segment, but I think you're 100% right. I think that's the identity of the team going forward is patient at-bats, grinding out at-bats, making pitchers work. And the more guys you get on base, the more pitchers struggle, the more chances you give yourselves. Yeah, base running probably needs to be better. Defense needs to be better. They didn't lose base. They won the game, but they didn't set themselves up to fail defensively, right? Like Rocchio had the error. Bo had the was that a pass ball? I don't know.
Yeah, it was a pass ball.
It was bad. It was bad. But like the defense picked up Ben Lively. Ben Lively had a couple walks. He wasn't throwing strikes early. It was cold. The defense turns some nice level plays. Gabby Arias had a couple nice plays. Lane Thomas had a nice play in center. They did enough today to not lose. And I think when you're a team like the Guardians right now and you're trying to figure that identity out and you're trying to get out of a sluggish start, you have to survive in advance. You have to find ways to win, and you have to build good days together because you do have to form that identity. I talked about that with you and Chico, that last year, this team's not going to be the same as last year. It just doesn't work like that all the time. So you want to try to build good habits and build good things days in a row to make things add up. And I think even though this isn't a sexy score against a bad team on a home opener, it's still a good day to build on.
Yeah, and I think, to go back to it, it's like it's a very similar team from a year ago. There's still some guys on this team that can run when Jose is fully healthy and stuff like that. But I think some of this is takeaways from the ALCS, because what really got them was, the Stanton hitting home runs. But the reason Stanton got those opportunities was guys walking in front of him. And that Yankees team had a very high walk rate. And I think they kind of saw some of that and saw how that team would just eat their way through pitching staffs because of the walk rate, because of that. And I'm not saying they're necessarily emulating them, but I think they definitely took away some lessons and are trying to do it in their own way. It's a bottom 5 market in terms of size and, average income compared to some of these places. They're never going to be able to compete with the Yankees in terms of money. The hope is eventually they're going to move more to the middle. Let's be honest, but they're trying to find ways to compete and trying to find guys who can help them in that. And I think it's going to be interesting. It's early. Like, again, we aren't even 10% of the way into the year. It's way too early to make any generalizations when it comes to the team in terms of like, this guy's a bum, this guy's an all-star, but we can see positive traits and negative traits, but I think we can see where things can go to make this team as successful as possible.
Absolutely. In the second segment, we're going to do Jeff's box score bingo, 3 stars of the game. We're going to talk more about Nolan Jones and why he needs more chances. We'll talk about Lane Thomas's injury scare, what that made us think about. We got to talk about Cody Bolton, that trade, and we'll do a little stock watch Wednesday on today's episode, recapping the home opener on Locked On Guardians.
Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crackin, a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Here's what I always talk about, and it's a great point. At least I think it is. You agree with me? But when you have a snack, the wrong type of snack, you just keep filling your face. You keep filling your face, and you're not getting anything from it because it's not filling you up, and you're just getting empty calories. When you eat those wonderful pistachios, they will help fill you up, and they will give you protein. They're going to help fill you up, give you protein, give you energy to get through your day. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Maybe more punch than either offense today. I think we can say that for sure. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Hey, thanks again for being here and making Locked On Guardians a part of your daily routine. We hope you are downloading on audio automatically so you never miss an episode. That helps us out a lot, and we want to be part of your daily routine. We love talking to you guys. We love talking baseball, and we do it a half hour every single day. You get your Guardians fix right here every single day on Locked On Guardians. Hit the bell on YouTube so you never miss a video. I posted a reaction video right from the ballpark after the game. People ate that up. Appreciate that. So make sure you hit the bell on YouTube. And if you like what you're hearing, you want to be an insider, I sent the text about the Cody Bolton trade out pretty early. some observations during the game. We had our insider video chat on Monday night before the home opener. People seem to love that. If you want to hang out and do all those things, chat during games, chat when news happens, and get some bonus content, all that kind of stuff. Jeff's got some draft content that's going up right now. So if you want access to all that stuff, become an insider. We'd love to have you. Ask anybody who is an insider what they think of it and see if it's right for you. Join subtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. The link is in your show description.
Can I interrupt you real quick? I also just want to throw
Please.
out on top
Yes.
of all that other stuff. For people who follow on YouTube and may not know what the MLB Squad show is, Justin's a part of the squad. So go check it out. It's
Squad
additional
up.
content. You get to see more of Justin. So if you want more of our takes, it's people who want crossovers. Like this is a group of the hosts getting together and talking. Justin's going to be a part of it virtually every week. So if you're just like, what is this in the thing? I just wanted to explain what it is. It's a chance to have more Justin, hear more baseball. It's going to be more about the generalities of the MLB. But, for people who talk about wanting to see us with more hosts or really like those crossovers, you're getting it every week this way. So I just want to say, go check that out. It's another thing. I don't think they're putting it into the iTunes. So I think you have to go to the YouTube to get that. But
it should be in the audio feed. I'm pretty sure. It should be in the audio.
Oh, no, you're right. It did pop up in mine because I have mine set to auto download just to help goose us for one more download. So it did pop up.
Why not? Yeah, I'll be on there mostly every week talking baseball. We talked a lot about the Vlad extension. We talked about
torpedo bats.
We talked about torpedo bats. We just talked about some slumping teams early on too, and teams that are surprise starts. So yeah, we'll do that every week. It'll be a different machination of hosts each week talking about MLB storylines. It's a lot of fun. So check that out if you're wanting more MLB content. You want more crossovers from our group. Jeff, let's talk about Nolan Jones. I know we want to get into box score bingo, and actually, let's do box score bingo and 3 stars real quick before we get into more about Nolan Jones.
So in a game like this, 3 stars I think is kind of easy because they only had 3 hits and 2 of them went to Carlos Santana. So I think he automatically gets one.
The birthday boy.
That's his 4th one. So he leads the team right now in terms of stars. Like he has been one of the more consistent. Nolan Jones, they had 5 walks. So you're looking, I'm giving you the preview. They had 8 total base running opportunities, in this game. Half of them came from Jones and Santana. So those are the 2 guys. And Jones, he almost had a home run. Like that one just went a little foul at the end. I also want to give a lot of credit to John Kenzie Noel. We've seen him be more patient this year. He clearly put in work. And yeah, he swung a ball 4, and then the next pitch he took ball 4, which a year ago he wouldn't have done. So I do want to give him a little credit. He is one of the stars. And then yes, defense did bail out Ben Lively today. Rocchio had the bad throw, so we're going to fixate on that. But defense did some nice. Gabby had 2 nice plays offensively. Some ugly swings today. He's maybe trying to press, but he had 2 nice defensive plays. Overall defense was good today. There was 1 bad play, but I think the defense actually played well. But Lively, when you have 2 hits, 3 walks, and 5 innings, I think he's got to be one. 8 opportunities for Cleveland. That should lead to 2 to 3 runs, but super cold day. It's going to suppress runs being scored. And Chicago had the exact same amount at 8. And that should also be 2 to 3 runs. My final comment in this is I want to thank the Chicago White Sox for making the baffling decision to keep an over-the-hill Mike Clevenger as opposed to Jake Eater, who is a really interesting lefty who, yes, has struggled. But when you're a bad team, why are you keeping Clevenger and not Eater? It makes the White Sox are doing a lot of things well. Their pitching development's been fantastic. They got some interesting young prospect. I don't understand that move, but
yeah, I think I was telling Paul that on the Locked MLB Squad show. I said the only team I understand less. Actually, I think I said the Angels, but I think I should have said I understand the White Sox a little bit less too. Yeah, Jake Eater, more upside. Mike Clevenger, hey, the fact that he was there gave the Guardians their home for a win.
Let's be honest. Well, he didn't look washed on the mound. He looked like he needed a wash on the mound a little bit.
All right, this is not the pick on Mike Clevenger hour. I mean, maybe he deserves, maybe he doesn't. Anyway, let's talk more about Nolan Jones because Nolan Jones did have the best game of anybody. There's so many interesting things about him right now, to be honest with you. I know it has, if you're looking on the surface for numbers, things aren't looking sexy for him. But if you look a little bit below the surface, we talked about this off air. Bat speed for him has increased year over year. That's a good sign for his health.
Third largest increase this year in all of Major League Baseball.
So that should be a good sign that he's healthy right now. And he had 2 absolute lasers in this game, man. He had the best batted ball in this game. It was, the launch angle wasn't good, whatever. It had a 550 expected batting average, and he had the fourth highest hit ball in this game too, and had a 760 expected batting average. Then he had the 2 walks, which one was the game winner. He had a 9 pitch at bat, a 6 pitch at bat. That's why Cleveland acquired him. So those hard hit balls are going to start finding holes eventually. They will. I mean, yes, you can't be hitting the ball on the ground all the time. You want to get it up a little bit, but those are going to find, some grass more often than not because you're hitting the ball hard. And this is that one thing that Cleveland team has lacked, right? And yeah, you mentioned some props to Noel. His walk rate this year is, I mean, again, it's a couple of games, so I'm not going to get too worked up over it. But his walk rate right now is better than I ever thought it would be at this point of any season of his career, because the guy doesn't walk, and he walked in this one, and he also does carry a good walk rate right now, and he's not striking out a ton. So that's good. Those are all positive signs of development. And again, I know I'm not going to say it. I'm not even going to go there. But the Guardians need to keep throwing Nolan Jones out there. They don't have any other choice. George Valera and Chase DeLauder, those guys you can't count on for help this year. Nolan Jones is healthy right now. And funny enough, they trust Nolan Jones to play a little bit of center, because I want to talk about the Lane Thomas thing in the third segment. But funny enough, they trust Nolan Jones a little bit in center. You got to keep giving the guy chances. He has a great arm. The approach helps. If you're trying to build an identity around walking and plate discipline and trying to just grind out at bats and grind pitchers down and making mistakes, this is a guy you're going to need to come around. They have to keep giving him chances. I know some of the results haven't been pretty so far, and you're going to want to keep platooning him with Noel. You got to keep giving this guy chances, because I think you're going to have to live with the swing and miss, because with the swing and miss, you're going to find good things. You're going to find the high exit velocities are going to help you. You're also going to find the walks in there too. So you're going to have to live with some of that, but I think there's still room for it to help, and they have to keep throwing him out there for that reason.
And here's something I want to throw out. I think they're doing some pretty massive work on his swing right now with him. And the reason I say that is his launch angle is over 20 on average so far this year. In Colorado, it was under 10. And his strikeout rate is higher. And while I think they're trying to get him into, loft his power more, because his pop-up percentage is at 17% this year. It was never higher than 4.7 before. So I think there's some work in tinkering going on under the hood, which makes sense, because, here's a guy who was hurt last year, had a lot going on in his life, but here's also a guy who came from Colorado, and Colorado's finally starting to have some fun prospects come up and hit. But for the most part, like, go and look at their players. It's like, guys don't consistently play well there. Like Ryan McBannon feels like he has been on the verge of average or just slightly below or below for below. No, that's not a word, but for 8 years. Like, it's hard to find consistency in that environment. And I don't know if it's due to coaching. I don't know if it's due to development. I don't know if it's due to environment. I don't know if it's due to all of them, but I think you're seeing a lot of positives. Like, you look at Jones, he's near the top in average exit velocity, near the top in hard hit, near the top in bat speed. His square up percentage is not bad. His chase is not bad. His whiffs and Ks, and normally he walks. He hasn't walked as much. Like, there's a lot of signs that he'll do better. But I think, honestly, he is being coached up on the fly a lot right now, is my observation. I don't think what we're seeing now is going to be the same player we see at the end of the year.
I agree with that. And you also don't know with Nolan Jones either what bad habits he fell into last year. When guys get hurt and they try to play through injuries, they compensate and they get into bad habits, and your body has to readjust. You have that what do you call it? Not I don't know what the word for it is. Words are hard.
Subconscious,
on podcasts,
like they do make subconscious changes.
But just your body has to work back out of those rhythms, the things you fall into. It's just a habit you have. So who knows what he was going through last year mechanically that might have been altered by an injury, like it happens to pitchers all the time. So yeah, I can see that totally happening as well. I want to keep seeing good chances. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the Lane Thomas injury. We're going to talk about the bullpen a little bit. We'll talk about Cody Bolton, that trade. We'll do a quick stock watch Wednesday as well to wrap up this episode of Locked On Guardians. Stick around. I know we're all paying attention a little more to our money these days. If you ever check your bank account and you wonder, where did all my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, we know it's very easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over your finances. And this is not just your average budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and build some wealth. I know during baseball season, I spend a lot more money. I'm busier. I'm at games. My habits change with spending, like, food and just gas and all that kind of stuff. I'm out more. So it's important for me to be able to track my money those times of year to make sure I know what I'm spending it on, where I need to pull back elsewhere to kind of compensate for that this time of year. And Monarch Money is a great way to do that. You don't have to do multiple apps. So you can just check your finances, track spending, and helps you plan long-term goals. So you can figure out, okay, if I'm spending more money during baseball season, how can I still achieve my long-term financial goals? Where else can I pull back to make that happen? So take control of your finances like I'm doing with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Get some savings while building some savings. All right, Jeff, I will admit that Lane Thomas hit by pitch made me think. It's still early. It's 10 games. It's 10 games. You and I both had an episode where we talked about the outfield has some potential. Nolan Jones, we're like what we're seeing in some ways. Noel still has potential. Quan is Quan. I know there was some like buzz around like a possible extension with Quan. We can touch on that, but there's not much to add on our side of things. We've kind of covered that, and I don't think there's new news in terms of whether or not it's going to get done or not. Look, our buddy Andre now, we love Andre, and he's got, inside scoop. He's going to hear these things. We just don't. I'll believe they get something done with him when it happens. Until then, I'm not going to believe it. And I'll
Andre
have more on
talked
that
about extension
tomorrow.
talk with Ahmed Rosario as well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's not to denigrate Andre. We love him, but it's just the nature of the business. He's going to hear a lot. He's going to talk to a lot. He's going to hear a lot of things, and
also I'm sure they're trying to. I'm sure they want to.
No, 100%.
It's just whether or not they find common ground there. So I've got to hear me out on that tomorrow. Actually, it's not really a controversial take, but it's a controversial take based on something else. So I'll give that tomorrow. But the Lane Thomas, when he got hit by a pitch, came out of the game. Luckily, X-rays are negative. He's day to day. But I started thinking, because they brought Daniel Schneemann in initially, and I was like, look, no disrespect to Daniel Schneemann, but if something happens to Lane Thomas where he can't play, for a little bit because of an injury, Daniel Schneemann cannot be this team's starting center fielder. He just can't be. And they don't really have a right-handed option at AAA right now. And I know, I'm not going to go there. I was like, man, what are the contingency options? Lane Thomas has not been good so far this year, unfortunately. I know I said all-star, he was going to have a really good contract year. That hasn't panned out for me so far. Shocking. At least Manzardo has. But I was thinking, God, what do they do in center field if Lane Thomas goes down? They don't have another right-handed hitter. They don't have a true center fielder. Not a shock to anybody who's been watching this team for a long time. I was like, the only option I could think of if it's long-term is you have to put Angel Martinez out there, or do you run Nolan Jones out in center because they've trusted him a little bit out there in the short term, and you say, well, maybe if you think Schneemann's a better defender than Nolan Jones in center, but you're okay with rolling with Nolan Jones for a few innings in center for the offense and putting, John Kenzie Noel in right for the offense, you could put Schneemann in center to close the game defensively if you don't go like to Angel Martinez. Because Angel Martinez is the only guy who bats from the right side. He's a switch hitter, because the other option in AAA is Will Brennan, another left-handed hitter. So like the only contingency option out there is Angel, or just moving Nolan Jones over and playing Noel every day.
So I know what people are thinking, which is, why don't you move Quan? And I there's a reason why Quan stays in left field. That's because that's actually where the majority of balls in the outfield go. Like, that is why they're willing to play a Lane Thomas in center field who doesn't have as much range or a thing like that. I think there's actually a very specific evaluation. Center, left, and left in general are where the majority of baseballs go in that outfield. So I don't think they want to move Quan. I think Quan is in left field because he's the best defensive left fielder in baseball, and the majority of balls will go to him. So then it sets up the situation. And it's also interesting from the regard of, like, this is looking forward to 2026 because Thomas isn't going to be here. So it's like,
right.
If you're looking at what this team's hoping for, let's be honest, it might be Nolan Jones in center field, who is a very similar to Thomas in terms of no range, great arm, bad routes. Their savant pages are not dissimilar when you look at right field, though Thomas is better. I think, if you're hoping you hope everyone gets healthy and everything. A year from now might be Quan Jones Chase. Is that like the hope anyways? So, I mean,
If Chase is healthy, yeah. It's
I know.
also an arbitration issue too. Let's be honest. It's also it's a health issue because of the hamstrings, and it's also an arbitration issue too. Because if he plays better center field, you got to give him more money in arbitration. That changes the value of that calculus too.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think I think that could be it, but I think it's more just that's where like rather significantly left field as opposed to center and right. Like I think it is just knowing the valuation of the way this team drills down on stuff. It's like, the just how like for instance in the corner, it's like 1/5 as many go to the right field corner as the left field corner. It's like that
Yeah.
significant. So
Really quickly too from this game, the bullpen was really good. You had the
mhm.
2024 vibes from the bullpen. I know Cade Smith walked a couple batters. I will say this: Cade Smith's velocity was down Sunday, and it was down in this one. I'm gonna give that a mulligan today because of the cold weather. Everybody's velocity was down. Hunter Gaddis's was down. Class A's was even down, but Class A has looked today. It looked on in the home opener the best he's looked all season. So I'm just gonna say it's cold weather. Class A, they talked a lot about like getting him comfortable pitching at the top of the zone more. He just hasn't ever gotten there. So he's got to locate the cutter at the top of the zone better, and he's got to go down low at the slider. And he did much better with both of those in this one. So bullpen looked better. That's a positive step for this team, as the bullpen has to be a little more consistent again to start the year, because your starting pitching just isn't carrying the load again. Ben Lively went 5 innings, and he did the best he could with what he had today and the conditions. But the bullpen gave you good hope on this one. Let's very quickly get into Cody Bolton. Jeff, so the Guardians made this trade before the home opener on Tuesday. The Mariners had DFA'd Cody Bolton last week, and he was out on waivers. Cleveland decided to claim him and made a small trade. Cash considerations. He'll go on the 26. He's on the 40-man roster. He goes to Columbus. John Means goes to the 60-day IL to make room for him, so they don't have to create any real 40-man room for him. And he's got an option, so that's good. What we've learned about Cody Bolton really is he's got a good cutter. I think Cleveland would be wise to tell him, let's throw that cutter more and more because it's his best pitch. High
Sinker
spin
cutter.
rates. Yeah, he's got high spin rates, and he's got an option. So he just becomes a guy they can shuttle up and down from AAA if they need it early in the season if somebody gets hurt. Because really, who did you have that you can shuttle from AAA? You're trying not to do that with Andrew Walters. Nick Enright's hurt. Franco Alamon's hurt. You didn't have a whole lot of options to do that with from AAA. Now Cody Bolton becomes that guy, and that's always important to have. But maybe they'll find a diamond in the rough here. Maybe they increase the cutter usage. Maybe they see the trait. We always talk about traits, right? And he's got the high spin rates, so maybe they see something there. They can make some adjustments and get some value out of an optionable reliever.
Yeah, he Pirates to Mariners to here. The fact that they had to make a trade means someone else higher in the waiver pool claimed him first. So they then, went and made the trade. So clearly he was liked by multiple teams. I mean, on paper, he's the Strzelecki for this year, like that's excuse me. And that, they need that depth, and that he will, he's the guy you don't care if he goes up and down a bunch, and he gives you some more depth. And, they're able to use all the hurt players to their advantage, that they had the extra 40-man spots. They have not been moving. They didn't just drop everyone on the 60-day disabled list. They're only doing it when they need to. So John Means moved over, and they did this. And, is it a land, an earthquake move? No, it's not. But depth is a good thing, and it's a smart move. Like it's adding more depth is always a good thing. Go ask the Milwaukee Brewers after they paid. I mean, they paid more for a guy who couldn't even make the Red Sox 5-man rotation than Cleveland got for Naylor or Jimenez. Like pitching is expensive right now, and adding more depth is a good thing.
It is. All right, quick Stock Watch Wednesday, and we'll get out of here. We'll talk about tomorrow's show. Stock Watch Wednesday, I think we said it during the show. I think stock up on Nolan Jones right now, right? I think that's where I'm at, because I'm looking at Nolan Jones and more there. I talked a little bit with Chico on Tuesday about Braylon Doughty. I was very impressed with Braylon Doughty with his first outing. I'm very encouraged by the fact that Cleveland was willing to give him that opening day start in Lynchburg, a year out of high school. So I'm just continuing to, invest. It's a risky investment because he's a high school pitcher, right? And Cleveland hasn't done with high school pitchers, and outside of catchers, it's the riskiest demographic in baseball. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far in Bone Dowdy. Are you buying any stock in Jorge Burgos, Jeff? 4 homers in 4 games. The Guardians need an outfielder. Is Jorge Burgos the guy? I don't know, but I want to talk more about Jorge Burgos later in the week. There are some interesting things on his line so far that I'm curious to see if he keeps up. But 4 homers in 4 days. I know the kid has power. He does.
Yes.
There's other things I didn't like before, but there are some things that are changing. We need to see if those are going to stick or not. But I'm in the information gathering stage on Jorge Burgos, I'll say.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's a really interesting guy. He's Rule 5 eligible. So hey, just something else to keep in mind. I haven't put together that list yet this year. I'm going to do kind of a boring one. I'm going to say Carlos Santana because he's a notorious slow starter, a guy who, you're kind of counting on not starting out very well. And he's been their most consistent hitter game to game. Like Jose's highs are definitely higher and Jose's been their better hitter. But in terms of consistency, normally that's been Quan. And not say Quan's been bad, but he definitely has kind of come down a little bit from that Royal series. I think for me, it's Santana just because the expectation is not there for him to perform this well this early.
That's a safe one. But it makes sense. I agree. On tomorrow's show, we will talk about the matchup for the White Sox and the Guardians. That is going to be Logan Allen. He needs a better start, and he is opposed by Sean Burke, who is a good pitcher. Lots of extension.
He's very good.
This has all the makings of another low-scoring affair. Let's hope it's a low-scoring affair because I can see the Guardians hitters struggling between Burke being an interesting pitcher and it being cold again. Let's hope the cold weather and holds down the White Sox bats again, and Logan Allen has a better start. We'll touch on that. We'll do Hear Me Out. We're also going to talk about a guy who might be coming back midsummer, a little sooner than we think, and we'll talk about how they're going to reintegrate him into the lineup and what that means. That'll be coming on tomorrow's show.
But thank you all for joining us again. Rate and review, download daily. It helps if you're someone new joining us just because it is the home opener. Thank you. Make sure you click the bell so you get more alerts and follow us. And
hey, thanks to everybody on Reddit, by the way. I got a nice link to the Reddit thread. Everybody was throwing out what their favorite podcasts were. We got a lot of people recommending us. Shout out to the Reddit community. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. We did really a mailbag with the Reddit community earlier this year to kind of show our love. But thank you. We appreciate all of that. And as we always say, go, Guardians, go.